Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, hooligan shills, desolate search, peasants, vessels, insects, animal, human hybrids, robots. I'm a useful idiot, and here I am talking about DARPA again. And of course, they've come up in this story that's making the rounds recently about DARPA working on super soldiers who are going to be genetically modified to enhance their performance on the battlefield, which of course is pretty controversial. Working on genetic modification of human soldiers at the level of DNA, and they've been doing this for the last 10 years. So, but anyway, the story making the rounds is that they're saying that they are going to use this for creating soldiers who won't need much food or much sleep and can run at Olympic speed, and at some point may even be able to rebuild lost limbs. And of course, this goes along with a bunch of other interesting technology they're working on to enhance the regular soldier, and that includes exoskeletons and helmets that could enable soldiers to communicate telepathically, and contact lenses that will transmit images from satellites and drones. And so this is all the things that they're working on now at DARPA. One area of success they've had is shutting off the trigger to sleep. A drug was tested on U.S. Army helicopter pilots that enabled them to stay up longer than 40 hours, with their levels of concentration actually improving after 10 days. So I'm assuming they just gave them cocaine. But I joke, but as it turns out, they're hoping to replace amphetamine drugs. And of course, methamphetamine has had a long history in the military. We use it for enhanced soldier performance in the battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan also manufactured and used methamphetamine with a lot of their soldiers as well. So anyway, but this whole new super soldier technology goes a lot further, and that's where I want to talk more about the big picture. And this also includes DARPA. So the picture of DARPA that we're getting continues to get darker and darker and resemble more of the Hive in Resident Evil, because now we go into transgenics, and that is the enhanced genetic modification of human soldiers is only one component of this new genetic modification program, and the other one is transgenics, and that's where, now that we've been able to map the genome, we can now talk about blending species. And that's exactly what the military and pharmaceutical companies are doing. So we're having human-animal hybrids. And this idea and this technology is far more advanced than most people realize. Interestingly enough, the first success in transgenics was the organization DARPA. Yes, DARPA, and that was the transgenic spider goats, and that's where they knew they couldn't have a spider farm producing the levels of spider silk they needed for advanced technology, so they crossed spiders and goats, and now the spider silk comes out in the goat's milk, and we actually use it in creating bulletproof vests. So that DARPA is responsible for the first major success in transgenics, and then of course more recently we've had babies born of 3 separate parents and their DNA patterns. And so this enhancement of soldiers and humans in general will use robotics and exoskeletons and genetic engineering and nanotechnology, as well as brain-machine interfacing. So they're really getting serious about this stuff. I found it rather interesting, too, that Bush actually came out in the open and called for a prohibition of this very human-animal hybrid production, and he was very concerned about it, and then of course Obama overturned it with an executive order, so we were going full force into animal-human hybrids again. But to place the blame on Obama or give credit to Bush is really not the point, so I just want to move on from there. Another example of transgenics that's already in action is a transgenic pig farm in Missouri, and they use that to harvest organs. So they have a certain percentage of human DNA in these pigs that are being raised in Missouri. And another heads up about why we know that this technology is far more advanced than is being admitted is because the government's already set up an organization to create a protocol and how the Bill of Rights will be applied and how much animal to human ratio will be appropriate to classify something as a human or not. So that's pretty interesting, because then we also get into the field of biodesign, and that's the idea of creating an immortal organism, is what they call it. And this is all documented on DARPA and information available in their website and specifically their budget. And they took it one step further. They're creating what they call an immortal organism. And there's millions of dollars budgeted for this immortal organism that is potentially a lethal force and is a living, breathing creature. And it's so potent, they want to build in a kill switch. So you include that with the fact that apparently acceptable levels of human to animal in hybrid research being done now is 50-50. So apparently it's tolerable in science now to contemplate a laboratory created creature that is part any animal that you can pick on Earth and 50% human. So 50% animal and 50% human. So they've already created an immortal organism that is a living creature that is potentially a lethal force that is part human and part animal. So that's a very, very diabolical thought. And apparently there's some kind of arms race going on here where the military and science all over the world are competing to come up with this technology, even though it's not in the public view and certainly not nice to talk about in decent circles. And of course all the military branches are funding this and also funding their own programs. So there's quite a lot of this going on, and it's going on all over the globe too, both with private scientists as well as government and military. So anyway, I'm sure this episode about DARPA was a lot less dry than the other one, because we're getting into some pretty scary stuff now. So the Supersoldier technology, or Extended Performance Warfighter Program, as it was called at DARPA, is only one part of a much scarier, bigger picture. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.